All right, welcome. Today we're pulling on a single thread that connects a president's big economic promises, a Wall Street insider's investment playbook, and the forgotten genius whose work is literally powering the AI in your hand right now. Let's dive right in. So, what on earth ties all of these things together? We're going to follow the breadcrumbs, starting with a political rally, then tracking the money on the stock market, and finally uncovering a hidden history that is, no joke, shaping our future as we speak. Okay, first up, we're landing right in the middle of a campaign rally. We're going to look at three huge economic claims, presented just as they were in our source material, to really understand the story that's being told about the economy. So the first number that just jumps off the page is this one, 5.4% GDP growth. The claim here isn't just that the economy is doing well, it's that it's exploding to levels that are, and I'm quoting here, unheard of. Okay, next up, get this, a 77% cut to the trade deficit in a single year. I mean, just to give you a little context, the source we're looking at notes that moving the needle by even 1% is usually considered a massive win. So 77%? That's a huge claim.
And rounding out this economic picture, we have this claim about investment. And wow, the contrast they're painting here is pretty incredible. On one hand, you've got over $18 trillion in a single year. And on the other, less than $1 trillion over the entire 4 years before that.
Okay, so we've heard the political pitch. Now let's pivot and follow the money. We're shifting gears from Washington promises to Wall Street plays to see how some of the most connected people are handling their investments. All right, before we get into the specifics, we got to get our heads around one key term, deep in the money calls. Sounds complicated, right? But it's actually pretty simple. Think of it like this. You're buying the right to get a stock at a price that's already way cheaper than what it's selling for today. It's a power move to use less cash up front and build in a little bit of a safety net. And boom, here's a perfect example of that exact strategy in action. The source we're looking at highlights these reported trades from Nancy Pelosi's portfolio. Just look at those strike prices for absolute giants like Google, Amazon, and Nvidia. They're all set well below what the stocks were actually worth at the time. I mean, it is a classic, textbook deep in the money move. But, it's not all about these super complex options trades. The playbook also hammers home a much simpler and, honestly, a much more powerful idea: patience. The source really argues that this whole obsession with the quick flip, getting in and out fast, it's a trap. Real lasting wealth, it says, is built over years, not days.
And if you need proof, just look at these numbers. This is what that kind of patience can get you. Holding Nvidia for 10 years, that's a 20,000% return. 20,000%. Netflix, over 8,500%. These numbers are just mind-blowing. And the key takeaway here isn't about being a genius who can time the market perfectly. It's about having the discipline to just have time in the market.
All right, let's take a breath. We're going to shift gears completely now. We're moving away from the stock tickers and financial data to the incredibly human story behind the tech that powers it all. We're talking about a true hidden genius, a man whose work is the bedrock of the AI revolution and whose name is now finally on the world's most powerful computer chip. This quote, it just says it all. It comes from a colleague of this brilliant mathematician, David Blackwell, and it perfectly sums up the impossible situation he was in. His mind, absolutely undeniable, but the racial barriers of his era, they were just as real. He was basically told, hey, you're brilliant enough for us to give you this prestigious fellowship, but we can't have a black man teaching in a classroom. Can you even imagine? And he was right. Yeah, his colleague was right. The same institution that saw his genius was the one holding him back. But you know what? His ideas couldn't be contained. Today, we know him as one of the forefathers of artificial intelligence. He pioneered the mathematics that makes machine learning possible. I mean, his whole life's work was about one thing: how to make better decisions when you don't have all the information. And if that's not the very definition of AI, I don't know what is. And now, in a beautiful piece of historical justice, NVIDIA's most advanced chip is named after him, the Blackwell. And this quote from another statistician, wow, it just hammers home how hidden his story really was. His work was so fundamental, so groundbreaking, that for some of his own peers, the idea that the mind behind it all could belong to a black man, it just wasn't even in the realm of possibility. It literally never crossed their mind. Okay, deep breath again, because for our last piece of this puzzle, we are taking a hard left turn. We're jumping from a story of incredible, enduring legacy
to a very, very modern digital hustle in the crypto world, all centered around a game we all played on the schoolyard.
So how does this thing work? According to the playbook for this platform, called ZoziCoin, it's actually pretty simple. First, you get their token, ZoziCoin, using other crypto, like Bitcoin. Then, you get matched up with another real person, and you play a simple game of rock, paper, scissors. And finally, if you win, you can convert your winnings right back into crypto and send it to your wallet. Simple as that.
So the big question is, what's the potential payoff here? Well, the playbook itself runs through a hypothetical scenario. It suggests that if you win, say, 20 low-stakes games an hour, for a few hours a day, you could potentially be looking at earnings of over 30,000 South African Rand a month.
So, wow. We've been on quite a journey, right? From a political rally to the inner workings of Wall Street to the forgotten history of an AI pioneer and all the way to a crypto game. What on earth is the thread that ties all of this together? Well, it all comes down to the power of a story, the power of narrative to create and to define value. When you really break it down, each piece we looked at represents a different kind of value, doesn't it? You have the projected economic value that's sold to you in a political speech, then you have the very real accumulated market value that investors are trying to capture, and finally, you have the profound, rediscovered intellectual value of David Blackwell's legacy, a value that was buried for decades. Each one is incredibly powerful, but what they're truly worth is all about the story that gets told.
And that really just leaves us with one final big question to chew on. The information, the data, it's everywhere. It's in the speeches, it's in the financial reports, it's hidden in our own history. But the real power, the real influence, isn't just in the raw data itself. It's in who gets to shape that data into a compelling story. So, in this age where we're drowning in information, who actually gets to tell the stories that last?